What's the stupidest thing someone has said to you with confidence? A distant cousin, who has long been a complete dumbass, once told me that whatever direction she is facing is north. It came up when I was on the phone giving someone directions and she was nearby. I said something like go north on X street, then take a left on Y, etc. She overheard me and said that I didn't make any sense because whatever direction you're facing is north, so north changes depending on which way you're facing. I said no, north is north, it's only the direction you're facing if you happen to be facing north, and she started arguing with me over it. She definitely was not just fucking with me because she is a dumbass that has a long history of saying really stupid shit. I used to work in a lab where origami was a pretty big thing, so there were origami figurines all over the place. Some guy comes to visit and comments on the figures and says, "Those are nice, what are they called?" McRae. I said, "They're origami." He responded, "I'm pretty sure it's McRae. I'm usually right about this sort of thing. I'm usually right about this sort of thing." I had a roommate in college who visited Spain and thought that it was hilarious that people there commented on his accent. Per him, I don't have an accent. I'm an American. Tom, you're one of the reasons that people think that we're all stupid. In a similar vein, a friend of mine in college had a boyfriend from the UK. You would not believe how many people asked him how he was able to speak English so well. It was horrifying. A visiting professor insisted that daylight saving time is needed at latitudes closer to the equator, instead of farther from the equator. She then claimed that she lived in the USA for a while, and she had experienced DST herself. Her reasoning was that New York observes DST, and New York was near the equator. When I pointed out that it snows in New York and it's not close to the equator, she claimed that she had been there, and it never snows in New York. We live in India, within the tropics, and we don't observe DST, but she claims we are far from the equator. She was easily the most arrogant piece of shit I have ever met. She was wrong about so many things, but aggressively yelled what she thought was right. A few of my coworkers and I went out to eat after work at a local bar and grill. One of my coworkers is pescatarian. Another one of my coworkers, Chris, is prone to speaking with absolute confidence about things he has incredibly little knowledge about. Jan I's, pescatarian, orders buffalo shrimp, which is listed under a header of wings and bites. Chris with supreme confidence, corrects her and says, "No dear, those are wings." He got possibly the dirtiest look I've ever seen, as the table started laughing at him uncontrollably. Coworker of mine after they find out me colorblind. "So, you can't see this?" Is holding a red tray we used to carry orders out. I mean yay, but wait, you can see the tray. Confused for a moment, did you think I couldn't see the object because it's red? Well duh, if you're colorblind, you can't see things that are that color, right? They're invisible to me, you're dumbass. I just can't properly tell what color it is. I was playing Rocket League with a buddy, we're in my club clan Thingy, and got matched against people in a different one, so the team colors were used instead of the standard ones. Our teams were white, and the others were apparently green. I complain about it being difficult to distinguish which net to shoot at sometimes, and my buddy asks, "Do you want me to screenshot my screen and send you a picture, so you can see their color?" I stayed silent and let him think about what he said. It took him about a minute before he realized what he had asked. Super conservative buddy of mine. Swear to God, I love him to death. We had a debate about global warming, green energy and using fossil fuels for energy. I pointed out that regardless of how you feel about fossil fuels, we would have to eventually move on to something else, because there's a limit to using oil and shit. He said in a drunken stupor, "We're gonna find oil on the moon and Mars." Told him the conversation was over after that since he didn't understand where the fuck oil came from. I still fuck with him about it once in a while. So many bills are constantly coming through and getting voted on every day. You kids have no idea. There's so many, no one even has time to read them. We just pass law after law after law all the time. This was our state representative that came as a special guest to our college political science class. He also couldn't answer any of our questions because he had no idea what we were talking about, and then he abruptly got up and left, saying he forgot he had another appointment. All you need to do is take cannabis oil 3 times a day, every day, and eat a whole vegan diet. Nothing processed, nothing artificial. I've done my research. If you give me your number, I'll text you some links. Come on, dude. I was just trying to walk my dog in peace. He asked why I was wearing latex gloves to pick up after her. I said I was neutropenic because chemo, and then he dropped that on me. For the record, I told him that my oncologist has done her research too, and I'm following her recommendations. I worked in its support and provided escalation support for the help desk and desktop support teams. One day a desktop support tech came into my office for help. The laptop couldn't access the internet. I asked her to open a command prompt and ping the router IP, and she got request timeouts. A point at which any halfway reasonable tech would stop and say, oh, the computer's not on the network. She, on the other hand, got the most know-it-all snotty tone and said to me, I need you to focus on the problem. He cannot get on the internet. He doesn't even use this ping thing. My history teacher in high school. She didn't really say it, but she had a question on her test that basically asked where Pearl Harbor was, and to her the correct answer was Japan. So, everybody who answered Hawaii got it marked wrong. There was a student revolt, and she insisted it was in Japan because there was no way Japanese aircraft would make all across the ocean to attack us. We then had to explain to her that aircraft carriers were a thing back then. She wasn't convinced. Anyway, the parents got involved and eventually the principal had to step in. The whole test was called into question because of some other questionable stuff. The whole thing was thrown out and we all got A's. Mentioned that my parents aren't the same faith. One is Muslim, one is an atheist, but they're both white. My coworker said, oh, I didn't know you're biracial. With full confidence. Hearing that one parent is Muslim, my other coworker has been desperate for me to share our traditional dances, foods, tea with her. We are pasty white people from the Midwest. My traditions end with corn dogs and hokey pokey. After a motorcycle accident, an air doctor confidently told me my left leg was broken. I corrected him and said, you mean my right leg? He got testy, checked his paperwork, and said no, your left leg is broken. I again corrected him, it's my right leg. He became irate. I spent 12 years on a medical degree. What makes you think you know more than me? I pulled back the covering and said, I can see the bone sticking out. A nurse asked me for weight loss tips over dinner when I was inpatient for anorexia without a single trace of shame. And gain weight for the boys. There was something to grab creepy old man, or do you really have to gain weight? I think your body looks nice. Another creepy dude, had BMI around 14, so no. Not very NIC, was around those people 24/7 for 10 months, and, sorry for the rant, but I am so fucking happy to be out of that place. I'm actually the person who said something stupid with confidence. I used to work at an auto insurance company, and I got a claim assigned to me for someone whose rims were stolen. I can't remember what the issue was, but we had to investigate something with their policy to verify coverage before we could process their claim. So, I call up the insured and explain this to him, and he asks me how long that's going to take, because he's already in a rental car. Very sternly I asked him, why are you in a rental car? Mind you, I had never owned a vehicle with nice rims before. My cars always had hubcaps, and I was seriously wondering why this guy thought his vehicle was not drivable without hubcaps. He goes, are you serious? With 100% confidence I said, I'm dead serious. Then he said to me, my car is sitting on blocks in my driveway right now. Right then it totally clicked, and I just said, oh. Number. This was over Facebooker. You won't need a liver transplant if you ingest these essential oils, and you can make money by selling them. Me. I'm on oxygen and can't walk 5 feet without passing out, also not allowed to drive. She, how will I be able to sell that stuff? Her. Well, after a week of using the oils you won't need oxygen. I blocked her on Facebook after that. She told my aunt that she tried to help me, but I was rude, so it will be my fault when I die. I'm always a bit disappointed when I make an amazing contribution to a post like this, but it's been 8 hours, and no one will see it. But here we go anyway. I told my brother the whole trivia thing about Alaska being the northernmost, westernmost and easternmost state, because of the international date line in the US. He proceeds to tell me I'm wrong and we go back and forth for a bit. He ends up yelling, it's a matter of physics. And I reply, how is this physics? Because of where they are physically on the earth. Needless to say, I gladly lost that argument. I was standing on a beach in Lake Tahoe, California, elevation 6,224, and an older woman said, "It's so crazy that we're at sea level right now, up in these mountains." I said, "No, we're over 6,000 feet above sea level." She replies, giving me a puzzled look, "No, all water on Earth levels out. So, we're on the same level as the ocean," then just stares at me. Her daughter said, "Mom, you don't know what you're talking about." Then the daughter leans into me and says, "It's even worse, because she's a teacher." Defending corporate tax cuts because then the businesses will have money to hire people, and that creates jobs. That demonstrates a complete lack of understanding of economics on a basic fundamental level. Businesses don't hire people for the hell of it, just so they can stand around without any work to do. They're going to hire people if their current staff can't meet the demand. And demand for products and services only goes up if people can afford to buy them. People can afford more if you give them tax cuts. Playing that out in reverse order, people have more money. They buy more stuff. Businesses hire people to help make that stuff. Those people have money. They buy even more stuff. Businesses hire even more people to help meet the increased demand. Money floats up, trickle-down economics isn't just a lie, it's fucking stupid. Inject money to the lower and middle class, and it'll find its way to corporate executives eventually. But on its way up it creates jobs. Inject money at the top, it just stays there. I was in the back seat of a vehicle that was T-boned at 60 miles per hour. Not wearing a seatbelt, I was thrown out the hatchback, and landed 30 yards away in the ditch. The driver of the vehicle I was in, was smoking a bong, and ran a red light. His vehicle literally broke in half exactly where I had been sitting. I was taken to the hospital by ambulance and remembered nothing. When I got out of the hospital, I found out the driver and his girlfriend, both in the front seat sharing the bong, had told the police it was my weed in my bong. I didn't even smoke at that time. It did not go well for them once my memory came back. I had a friend that I went to film school with and lived with him in law for a couple of years. He could get pretty arrogant with his film knowledge. He once told me in all seriousness that a guy high up in the industry revealed to him that Steven Spielberg wasn't on set for War of the Worlds and directed it over the phone. It made zero sense to me at the time, but he was pretty confident in its authenticity. It didn't click with me until I thought back to it years later that someone was probably trashing War of the Worlds and said that Spielberg was phoning it in. Here's a big list from the woman my dad married when I was 14. The earth is flat, and the moon never moves because it's fake. My father lost his soul to the devil when he got the heart transplant. That's not my husband, I don't know what that is. And wailing, they took his heart was at 4% working order with the LVAD in. The liberals want abortion, because they use the stem cells to never die. A shot of water with cayenne pepper in it every day will cure all diseases and ailments. Refuse to take my father to the hospital. The doctors are trying to kill him. Chemtrails that make you gay as a form of population control, and to make you sin so Satan can win your soul. Religious relics are real, and have actual magical properties. A lot of stuff about fat people, while being quite a bit overweight herself. My dad needs to kick me out because I am Satan. Well, she did end up kicking me out upon returning from the hospital when my dad died. Then took my dog of 11 years to a kill shelter while I was homeless before I could find a place. This turned into trauma sharing really quickly. I was working on a project with this guy. We met at an open spot on campus that had a piano nearby, and someone started playing the opening to Adele's Someone Like You. Then this guy, full of confidence, goes, "Ah, I love Moonlight Sonata." Told him I'm pretty sure it's Adele, and he goes, "No, I know about classical music. This song is in a video game I play." I had to tell him I play piano and study classical music, and what we were listening to was, in fact, Adele. Now, to be fair, I can kind of see how you can mix up those songs. But it was how confident he was in something he knew so little about that bothered me so much. So, in my history class, we had this one girl Alisha who was dim. Like, "Oh, you poor special snowflake, you're just genuinely slow. Possibly intellectually deficient even. But pretty, so nobody really intervened. Very nice though, totally lovely, just not sharp." Anyway, this day the teacher started us on ancient Egypt and was like, "Alright, so, when you think of Egypt, what do you think of?" A few hands go up, but she did her best to give extra time to Alicia, so when her hand goes up, she goes, yes, what do you think of first? Over the rest of the class, cause she needed a win now and then. Urns. Urns. Okay, I guess, yes, they did have urns in Egypt, I suppose that's one thing in Egypt, that and they put their organs in them. Oh? Canopic jars. That's a really wonderful answer, I didn't realize what you meant there, what a fantastic thing to think of first. That's a really deep part of their culture and religion, and a truly fascinating part we'll be talking about. Well done, Alicia. It must have been hard to do stuff if their organs were in jars, though. How did they stay alive? And the teacher just looked at her with such sadness. Her greatest height and achievement in academia by that point were mere seconds from her greatest foe. That Alaska is an island. I was in the car with 3 of my friends, and I suggested that someday we should all road trip through Canada up to Alaska. They all giggled and got silent in a way of like, who wants to tell him? And I was so confused what they thought was so funny, and with confidence every one of them had insisted that Alaska is an island, and we can't drive there. I was just like, wow, I have incredibly stupid friends. When I told them they were all wrong, they didn't believe me, and they had to Google it. When I had cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, I had several people give me crackpot solutions. From eating some magic type of mushroom to smoking weed. Everyone had a miracle cure. I even remember one particular person linked me to videos online about just thinking positively about the cancer going away, and you would magically get better. Do you know what actually worked? Chemotherapy. I also had many people tell me chemotherapy doesn't work, and it's a conspiracy by the medical community to kill people. None of these people were doctors, obviously. I used to work at Olive Garden. Couldn't believe how often guests would argue with me about what was on the menu last time they were THER3, and it would be something we hadn't served for years, or never served at all. It would go something like, guest. Yeah, can I have the veal parmesan? Me. Sorry, we don't have veal parmesan, but we have chicken and eggplant. Guest. I just had veal parmesan here last week. Me. Well, I've worked here for 3 years, and we haven't had veal, so it happened all the time. Bless all service workers. I had a guy argue with me that Pinocchio was real. I thought he was just fucking around at first, but he got super upset when people around us laughed. He then declared fully serious that Pinocchio was in the Bible. He got ate by a whale. I said, dude, that was Jonah. Pinocchio is the wooden boy in a Disney cartoon. You could actually see shit clicking and his face fall as he realized he said something profoundly dumb. This was 30 years ago and was so bizarre I remember it vividly. During a lunch break at work, the news was playing, and it featured a local university student who invented a water bottle that lights up intermittently to remind you to drink water. A coworker of mine who was a real know-it-all and generally arrogant SOB scoffed at the idea, saying, that's stupid, I know when I need to drink water. Now, I am not joking when I say this guy drank about 3 L of Coca-Cola every day, at least in the 8 hours I saw him. I imagine he drank even more outside of work. He was constantly off work for dentist appointments because of all the sugar, arrived every day to work with fast food for breakfast, left every day at lunch and brought back McDonald's, had a can of Coke every coffee break. I've never seen him drink water or eat a vegetable at that. So, my other coworker and I turned to him and asked, when was the last time you drank water? And he slammed his hand down on the table and yelled, 2 days ago. My other coworker and I collapsed onto each other and cried with laughter. That's not enough water, you need this bottle more than anyone. He turned so bright red and stormed off. One of the best laughs of my life. When I was a lowly private in advanced individual training, Army lingo for job training, at Fort Huachuca, Arizona in the spring 2000, an instructor asked if anyone knew what BMW stood for, and I raised my hand and answered Bavarian Motor Works. He condescendingly told me I had wrong and smugly corrected me that it stood for British Motor Works, because James Bond was British, and he drove BMWs in the Bond movies.